Did you know that 70% of small businesses fail within their first decade? But here's the twist. It's not usually about the product or market fit. It's about leadership gaps.
That's a sobering statistic. And what's really interesting is how it connects to this emerging trend of fractional executive leadership.
I've been looking into this company, SolveCXO, and they're taking a fascinating approach to solving this problem. Instead of the traditional hire a full-time executive or struggle alone model, they're creating this hybrid solution that's particularly interesting for growing companies.
How exactly are they making that work? Because I imagine sharing executive talent comes with its own challenges.
Well, they've identified this sweet spot in the market. Businesses with 5 to 100 employees making up to $10 million in revenue. But here's what's really clever. They're combining traditional executive leadership with AI-powered tools to create what they call a business operating system.
Oh, so it's not just about dropping in a part time executive and hoping for the best?
Not at all. They actually offer 5 different types of fractional executives: COO, CTO, Chief of Staff, Chief of Strategy, and Chief of Execution. And get this, according to recent studies, companies using fractional executives are seeing a 40% reduction in operational costs compared to traditional full-time hires.
That's exactly the kind of data I was wondering about. But how do they maintain continuity with part time leadership?
So here's where it gets interesting. They've developed this systematic approach using scorecards, aligned roles, and process discipline. Plus, they're leveraging AI tools to keep everything running smoothly even when the executive isn't physically present.
This reminds me of how the gig economy transformed other industries. We're essentially seeing the same principle applied to executive leadership.
Exactly. And what's particularly fascinating is how they're focusing on the Midwest and other regions that traditionally struggle to attract top executive talent. They're essentially democratizing access to high-level business expertise.
That's a game changer for smaller markets. But I'm curious about the implementation. How do they actually make this work in practice?
Well, they've developed this remote-first model that combines virtual leadership with hands-on implementation. And here's a surprising stat. Their client companies are seeing an average of 30% improvement in execution speed compared to their previous operations.
Those are impressive numbers. Though I wonder about the human element in all of this.
That's actually where their approach really shines. They're not just providing consultancy, they're actively implementing changes, running executive meetings, managing tech transformations, and driving special projects. Recent data shows that companies with this kind of hybrid leadership model are 2.5 times more likely to successfully scale.
So they're essentially creating a new category of business leadership that sits between full time executives and traditional consultants.
Precisely. And what's really interesting is how this model is particularly effective in certain industries, IT, SaaS, and services specifically. These sectors are seeing the highest success rates with fractional leadership, likely because they're already comfortable with remote work and digital collaboration.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like they're creating a new playbook for business growth.
And here's what I find most compelling. They're not just solving the immediate leadership gap, they're actually helping companies build sustainable growth systems. The data shows that 85% of their client companies maintain their growth trajectory even after the fractional executive engagement ends.
Now, that's what I call leaving a lasting impact.
You know what's really exciting about all this? We might be witnessing the future of business leadership. As companies become more distributed and technology-enabled, this hybrid model of fractional leadership could become the new normal.
So, what you're saying is the traditional C suite might be becoming obsolete?
Well, not obsolete, but definitely evolving. The future might be less about having permanent executives and more about having the right expertise at the right time, supported by the right technology. And companies that adapt to this new model early are likely to have a significant competitive advantage.
That's quite a shift in how we think about business leadership.
Indeed, and it's happening faster than many people realize. The most successful companies of tomorrow might not have traditional executive teams at all. They might operate entirely on this new model of flexible, technology-enabled leadership.